Oh, hello. Well, like I said, come February, we begin season 2 of The Damn Saint. Uh, Normally I'd have like a cool intro, maybe a little comedy sketch or something, but I'm in the middle of watching my favorite TV show, so I think the best thing I can say is check out episode 1 of season 2. Enjoy.
This comes to you from the Journal of Minister Matthew Forbes, the adventures of a struggling artist mixed into the world of mysticism and dark arts. Aside from battling my inner demons, I find myself matching wits with demonic and angelic forces. What can I say? You don't choose the mystic arts, it chooses you. So if you see me in the cemetery, just know I'm trying to save a soul, and next time it might be you. Open the gates of your mind, the damned saint has arrived. It was late on a Monday night, and I was sitting in the apartment with my friend Ezekiel, and we were practicing memory retrieval. In order to accomplish this, he had to put me into a trance. And slowly, it takes a little bit of time. It starts with a prompt. You gotta relax your body and your mind. And I'm one of those people that's difficult to hypnotize. So you have to allow yourself to be hypnotized. But eventually I was able to sink deep into this hypnosis. And Ezekiel started to ask me questions. This was a process to sort of help cleanse your psyche, you could say. Basically, we have memories that are foundational for our beliefs, for how we got to be who we are. And it was time that I dived deep into my psyche to explore who I am and why. When he first started going in, he said he wanted me to remember my first earliest memories. My first memory was when my father, I was about 10 months old, my father was taking me to the ER. I had been very sick, and it just seemed like, nothing was working, something was very wrong. And I can remember almost having this slight outer body memory of seeing my father holding me, and it was kind of like, almost like watching a film with jump shots, At one point, it was like seeing him from far away in the room, almost like an establishing shot of him walking in to this hallway with all these black chairs with these wooden, blonde wooden arms on the chairs. And I remember, and then it was like it jumped, and I was like looking at my dad from the side angle of his, seeing the side of his face. And then I was seeing my dad standing in this doorway, and I was kind of off to the side, and to my right, I could see these, like right, but like in front of me, were all these doctors, and they were kind of standing, but I wasn't looking up at them. I was looking over at them, and I realized they were looking down at a baby's body. I didn't make the connection until I thought back about this memory years later, where I realized that looking at that baby was me. That was my body, at least. Well, maybe not really me. That's why I am who I am today, because I've always gone around not like most people. Most people identify themselves with their body. If someone was to show you your body and say, "Is this you?" Say, "Yeah, that was me." But I know that deep down, like, look at a picture of myself in a photo, that's not really myself. That's a representation and some kind of avatar of my human self here. But what's inside? There was definitely something inside that was my first real experience of the spiritual realm. Moments later, apparently what I found out is that the doctors because I had such a bad fever, that they submerged me into an ice bath, and the ice bath revived me. And suddenly, like that, it was like I popped into my body, and I looked up, and I was looking up at the doctors above me, and I was back in the infant body that I had. I was 10 months old at the time. That's my first memory. So some more questions were asked by Ezekiel, and he takes me through some other experiences. One part that pops out to us is when I was in second grade, and we had a birthday party. I believe it was my birthday party, and I had a really good friend named Sam, and Sam was really cool, and I used to go to his house before school in the morning, and I had a crush on his sister Megan, and we would play, like fun games and watch TV and stuff in the morning before school. And I was really excited that he was able to make it to my birthday party. He lived just like a block away, and I was climbing in the tree in my backyard with my friend Sam and my two not my half sisters, my stepsisters, my stepfather's daughters. They were two twins who were also ironically Gemini, so it was like having 4 stepsisters sometimes mentally. But what was crazy, I remember like just something about me changed that day, and looking back I feel like all I can remember is I was hanging on to this one branch, and it snapped, and I fell down like a good 8 feet high from the tree, and I fell, and the way that I was holding onto the branch, and the weight of it, as I landed on my butt, the branch, as I was holding above my head, landed on top of my head. It was like a Three Stooges move, I fell on my butt, and the force of me landing on the ground brought my arms down right on, in this branch right over my head. And I know that a lot of people will say that they have, after weird injuries to their head, they've had sort of a more intuitive connection to their reality. And that was about the time where I started, my attention in life became hyper-focused in different areas that had never appeared to me before, and I started, that was when I had my first visit with Ezekiel, actually, because, currently in this time, Ezekiel is a spirit that's inhabiting the body of a human, and he's there to guide me. But at the time before he had shown himself to me, when I had started the path of the damned saint, originally Ezekiel was my first childhood invisible friend. I only ever had one invisible friend, and it was Ezekiel. He would always talk to me when I walked by the rhododendrons in my grandmother's backyard. And that was my first introduction to the spirit realm, you could say. So, moving on, some more questions, passing on through moving from second grade to 5th grade. 5th grade was a tumultuous time because I'd started school in one town, and then at the winter Christmas break, I had shifted into another town to live with. I no longer lived with my mother, and there was just it just wasn't the right time for me to move in with my father. And at the same time, right before that, in November 1999, I was the only grandchild that was there when my grandfather received his last rites. Now the crazy thing is that it just kind of, I don't know, something about that winter was just, it was like going into a time warp or something, you could say, whatever that means. It just, that whole month just seemed like it went by really slow, and it was just, there's a major consciousness shift that was going on at the time. And I can remember them, because my grandmother and my aunt were there at my grandparents' house. I spent a lot of time at my grandparents' house. My parents both worked weekends, and just, they were young parents and had personal lives. And I can, plus I had a great time with my cousins and stuff, so I didn't really care what my parents were doing anyways. But what was fun was just the time that I spent there. But that all came to an abrupt change when I was 10 years old, and I'd been upset because earlier that year in March I missed my grandfather's what would have been his last birthday, and I had to go to Florida with my mom and my stepdad, and I was kind of bummed out. I really wanted to just see him on his birthday, even I saw him after that, and it was November 2nd, my father's birthday, and I was at my grandparents. For some reason it was like a Sunday, I think, because it was like a Saturday or Sunday before school started or something. I'll have to Google that or whatever. And I can remember just being very composed, ironically, and they called the priest and they called all the kids, and my uncle and my aunt, my two aunts were there, and my uncle, and my dad was there, and he was called over, and it was just strange because I remember the priest showed up, and it was like a rainy night, and the priest showed up and he gave my grandfather his last rites. And seeing the priest do that, it wasn't like, someone sees like an actor or a musician and they go, oh, I want to have that job, I want to be powerful. I never saw it as a job, but something about the priest, I realized that I didn't want to be a priest in a religion, but I wanted to be some sort of administrator to the spiritual realm. And that's why I gravitated later on to being a minister. I guess it was inevitable. I had felt it then. I wish I just tried to, the youngest minister. But what was wild is the fact that because of the super tumultuous time of the event, I remember my father was kneeling down outside in this, wet grass, and it was just all foggy and raining, and I remember him just crying, and I was there, and I was sad, but I had this sort of strength, something I had to be there for my dad. His inner child needed to let it loose, need to let out. And it was, I didn't realize that I had that ability within me. I hope that it wasn't because I was numb to emotions, but I really just felt, I felt like that was the first time I myself experienced the emotions of a minister, of being there, but being compassionate, and so what transpired was, there was just also this weird side story of, my grandfather had always said to the family that when he passed on, he would communicate through music. And when he was getting very close to passing on, when he was, when they thought there was only 24, 48 hours left, when they, had requested the last rites, my dad was driving on his way to my, to see my grandpa and the family before he got the last rites done. And I can remember my dad saying that he heard the song Jet Airliner 707 by Steve Miller. And if you listen to the lyrics, it's very sad, almost, I don't want to say suicidal, but it's definitely someone leaving, you could interpret it, in many different ways. And what's crazy is that the number 7 and 27 and 707 all appeared in my family as kind of very pivotal numbers in our family for some strange reason. Something about, my grandfather was born in 1927, March 7th, and he died at the age of 72. And I know that, my aunt, who, she wasn't supposed to live that long, the third aunt that wasn't there, she passed on in 1985, from a heart condition, and she died at the age of 27. And there was like an uncle that was, and my great grandmother were born on the 27th, and I was born June 27th at 12:27 a.m. And in 1989, if you add up 1989, it equals 27. So something about that 27 number, closure. Some say it's connected to death, but it's not the grim death, but the rebirth death, going to. But there's a whole other concept of that to go into some other time. But that's what I remember most is just the intensity of energy happening at that time, and that was like a major building block for myself. And then it went into when I was in 9th grade, and I remember sitting in my English class, and there was a really cool teacher, Mr. Hamilton. He ended up leaving to become a DJ. He moved to Colorado and he pursued his DJ career further. Actually, I never found out what happened to the guy, but he was really into helping kids learn and teaching, and he was really young too. He was like, well, at the time, for what's considered a teacher. When I was younger, there wasn't many younger teachers. It was kind of like a new phase to have younger people be younger teachers. And he was in his early 20s, like 22 or something crazy, and 20. Yeah, I don't think he was 25. Maybe he was, I don't know. But, to all the other teachers that were there that had been there for years that were older, he was, he'd actually come in as a substitute, and then he ended up staying as the full-time teacher for, many years to come. I think he used to buy or sell weed in the closet in the classroom. Like in the mornings, sometimes I see this kid that I knew that would kind of go in and talk to him, and they were like hanging out in like this closet. There's these really long closets, and I think I busted him inadvertently, but it was really weird to find out they had these huge closets. But anyways, in the classroom. But anyways, I remember, I had this like crush on this girl, Katrina, some kind of Sleepy Hollow kind of thing. And I remember she sat in front of me for like, they would always change seats every once in a while. And she sat in front of me for this one semester. And, it was fun, it wasn't like I was like super flirting, but we interacted, it was cool. I was only 14, I hadn't really gotten, that much of a taste of talking to the opposite sex. But it was fun, just like the class is very interactive and we all got to talk, and we were doing Romeo and Juliet, and it's always cool when you do Romeo and Juliet because you read out of the book and you all read it together. And I think at one point her and I were Romeo and Juliet, but something that stuck out to me was the fact that there was this term that was used. We were learning different types of, different concepts of literature, and one of them happened to be a phrase that was first coined, I suppose you could say, by Shakespeare, which is the damn saint. Little did I realize that many years later, this phrase would come to mean more to me than just a fond memory from high school. And as I think about the past, how it merges with the present and the future, I think of life as a curve, what they call the curving theory, where everything in life just seems to be right around the curve, right around the corner. You're there, your desire is somewhat creating what's possible. Your intentions, your actions, your choices are all manifesting something. You're creating your life as you go along. We're sort of living this life, which is kind of like interrupting a dream. And somehow inside this dream, these forces or entities or something have kind of hijacked it. And they said, oh, you see that bright light in the sky? We call it the sun, and that sun, and we use that sun to clock time. And these creatures have been, whatever it is, I don't even really know what to call it anymore. But I've come to realize that they are fighting to keep our souls here for their purposes, and the spiritual realm is fighting for us to awaken to this human dream and to be who we are truly meant to be. And it's something that is beautiful to accept and also terrifying. But before I can go any further with this hypnosis or memory retrieval, suddenly we are interrupted by a knock on the door. Who could it be? What's on the other side? Tune in for next week's episode of The Damned Saint. Until then, be true, be you, and be aware. There is no fate but what you create. I am the messenger, the Damned Saint.